banking and stuff.
All right, welcome back to the NEA podcast, where we're featuring nonprofit leaders throughout the country. Today, it's not only an honor, but a privilege to spend some time talking to Stephen Burdman. He and I have known each other for a very long time. He's the founder and artistic director for the New York Classical Theater, and he's here to answer our 9 questions. So welcome, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
Great
It's such
to
a
have you.
great way. Great to chat.
So describe your nonprofit's mission and who you serve.
Okay, so New York's Classical's mission is to present popular classics and forgotten masterpieces in publicly accessible venues for free all across New York City. So we serve on average between 8,000 and 10,000 people a year for free with professional level off-Broadway theater in New York City. And in relation to this, so one of the things that we mention is about 30% of our audience currently lives at or below the New York City poverty line. So these are folks who would not be able to financially afford off-Broadway, which is fun. Yeah.
Tell us about your actors and how they're treated, and what you've done in your career to help them.
Well, they're all pros. This is what they do for a living. They're all unionized. We have 3 major theatrical unions that we work with. So we pay union rates, and actors receive pension payments and healthcare, as well as their weekly salary. So they come to us just like a regular off-Broadway job. We audition and do the same thing that a regular off-Broadway theater would do in New York City. So, but it's important to have that professional standing, if you will. Then we like them. We keep them around a little bit, like the norm. That's kind of a normal thing in our business. So
absolutely, I think that's fantastic how you take care of your people. I think it's unique. Not just in New York, but in general in theater. So I think that's great.
And I should also say we've added a new major program to our recognizing that classical theater is a tool of has been a tool of racism in the past. Our anti-racist activities, one of the tools is because classical theater, which we define as plays written before 1910, approximately 110 years ago. They are primarily written by white male men of European descent and European and American descent. So one of the ways we are working to fulfill our mission to really reach the entire cross-section of New York is by looking for current new plays, actually, that are based on, or what I'm calling cognates of, inspired by classics. So that's an exciting new program. We just brought in a literary director who's now a member of our staff. His name is Matt Chapman, and he's helping us discover that. And we're putting plays through workshops and ultimately into full production.
Fantastic. That's absolutely.
So Shakespeare will be running right against a brand new play that's written about maybe that same play.
Fantastic.
Yes, in conversation.
Really good idea. Why is your nonprofit more relevant now than ever before?
Well, I think that's what I talked about before is really the case. We are not, well, right now in the midst of the world pandemic, most of our summer productions are outdoors. So that makes it really much more accessible, and we're hopeful. It's not sure yet of whether we're going to do a production this summer. We're going to be safe enough yet to gather in mass. But what we define as accessibility is manyfold. Accessibility can mean financial discrepancy, right? Where we literally in our audience have a multimillionaire sitting right next to someone who lives at or below the poverty line. That's actually something that a lot of people don't think about in theaters. The people who can afford the really good seats sit up close, and the people who can't sit in the back. That's discrimination, right? That's financial discrimination. We are near public transportation for those who don't have access to a car or who cannot afford private transportation. Our texts themselves, although written for 400 plus years ago, oftentimes, we work on the accessibility factor as well, because a lot of our people attending our shows are not Shakespeare literate, don't come and have, oh, I've already seen this play in 17 other productions. No. They're coming for the very first time to see a show, which may be a popular classic for Shakespeareans, but maybe their very first time. So we're really thinking about all levels of accessibility and what those things mean. Our goal is, and we have not achieved this yet, is the way I paraphrase it is, I want our stage to look like a subway car, an average subway car at rush hour. So we really want New York is an incredibly diverse city, and we want to make sure that people can see themselves on stage and represented on stage.
It's fantastic. That's fantastic. So when you have this pandemic hit, and of course Broadway shuts down, and all these things are happening in New York, and you're doing the best that you can to keep your organization moving forward and gaining speed. At least it sounds like to me. What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is the uncertainty of where we're at. Honestly, that's what I was thinking about this question a lot. So you sent it to me a few days ago, and every morning I wake up and I'm like, can we go outdoor? Can we do a show? Can we not do a show? What's the unions going to say about these things? And, there's plans I have colleagues who have plans like A through M, right? They've got like different versions, and we're not big enough yet to run all those. I mean, nor would I want to literally run spreadsheets with 26 pages, or whatever, right. 15 pages. But, we do have scenarios. There are things like Zoom fatigue is a real thing right now. Many people spend their entire day, most people, not many, many people spend their entire day on Zoom. If they use it for work, if they use it for school, whatever. Can we continue producing plays on Zoom?
Right.
Which we've done. I think we just finished our fifth Zoom production, completely free, of course. There's, of course, there's a lot of the small stuff that keeps me up at night. I will say a big shout out to the Small Business Administration. Thank you very much for helping us get through this, continue to survive. We've learned a lot of lessons over the years. New York, I was not expecting to found a company in New York and this to be my first, not my first, but rather my fourth once in a lifetime event, right? We started with 9/11.
Sure.
We had a hurricane, we had a stock market crash, and now we have a pandemic, all in the 22 years that New York Classical has been around. So we've learned some lessons from that. And one of the things is socking away cash for restart money. A lot of nonprofits that were supported aggressively during prior events didn't come out of them, although they were, because they burned through all their cash during their downtime instead of holding on to it. Things like that. We have great support from our bank. We have great support from our supporters, incredible support from our board of directors, all the way down the line. I feel that New York Classical is very valued right now. And there's a lot of people who don't want to see us go away. But I also want at this time to be there for those people who lost their jobs, who may have been a supporter, but just can't do it now. So you know what? You should just come back anyhow. Thank you for your past, what you did. But we're there for you. We're there for your kids. So I feel like it's good. We're going to have there's a place for us right now.
I think that's excellent. As a leader, director, how do you expand your knowledge?
Well, the thing I've been working on, and this is part of we are a PWI, primarily white-led institution. And we are, since the death of George Floyd, and actually prior to that, we have been doing a lot of what we call anti-racist activities. And part of that is to expand the voices, what I call the voices going into my ears, right? So for many years, for really about 18 years, I ran this company by myself, and I don't. The consult was what's between my ears. I'm consulting myself. I don't want to be Donald Trump, right? I'm my best consultant. Well, I said that out loud, but publicly, but that's okay. So I am looking for new voices to bring in new ideas. I'm still going to make the final decisions as the artistic director of the company, the founder, but I want to make sure I'm really seeing all different perspectives. And our most recent hire, the literary director, Matt, has been really helpful about that, helping me just see things in a different way, from a different viewpoint, a different lens. How are these things going to affect people? Because, you know, there's a point where on any given project, you reach saturation with your own ideas. You could only know so much. But I am taking a lot of time right now to do a lot of reading a lot of stuff that maybe I would not have had time to do before. I'm really trying to take advantage of all this time, this downtime, if you will, because it's not that we're not very busy. We are very busy, but it's a different kind of busy because we're not running a show for 2 or 3 months a year. So that's a very different kind of energy.
So it's that collaboration, that looking at different views, bringing people in to kind of listen to them. That's how you're expanding your knowledge. I think that.
Yeah, largely. I mean, what's been really surprisingly pleasant surprise has been we've actually really grown our board of directors and really done a lot of turnover. 3 years ago, three people rolled off the board. We have now went from a board of 8 to now we're at 12, about to add our 13th. A lot of people in this time have rethought about what they want to do. A lot of people want to join boards of directors, wow, which has been great. We've added also we've added 2 BIPOC members of the board on the board, which is awesome. Again, a different perspective, hearing people from different backgrounds, and we're being very conscious about our continuing recruitment for our board. We know where we want. We're going to be 13, I believe, soon, and we want to hit 15 plus me. I'm a member of the board, so that would be a total of 16. But we're really being very careful about who we recruit and what skills they can bring to the board, and there's not that redundancy. There's a different way of looking at value. Is there value of in-kind service as opposed to give, get, and money? Sure. Not everybody has to do that, because what if we have a board member who can give us consultation that we'd have to pay for somewhere else when we're getting it for free? Isn't that a give? Isn't that their give?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that's a very different way of thinking about board members. And I'm really grateful to Hillary Cohen, our managing director, for helping me really kind of understand that. And also having now a regular second full-time employee in the office, someone who I can really just, bat around ideas with, but that's part of it as well.
It's excellent. I like talking about emotional intelligence because when we think of job descriptions, when we think of requirements, we have this list of stuff that most people can say, yeah, I've done that, or yeah, I know that. But emotional intelligence is the kind of person you are, how you navigate emotionally or socially that, keeps your team alive, keeps your board members engaged. What aspect of emotional intelligence do you use the most?
Well, I'm an artist, so let's start with that. So emotions are my business. So
that's a fantastic way to start.
Right. That's it. I mean, it's what is a theater company if there's no theater? What is any sort of nonprofit if there's no mission? I mean, the mission is, if there's no product, or events or a mission or whatever it is.
Right.
So, my first is an emotional response to shows. What are my audiences come for? Our audiences come for emotional response. That's the work, right? That's what people are attracted to, number one. And then we can take that to you, very specifically to your question, to the structures of the company, and how do we create that? How do we lay out a 4-hour board meeting? Right. So we have a board retreat once a year. Many nonprofits do, right? How do you keep people engaged? How do you keep them excited? So oftentimes our managing director turns to me and is like, okay, what are we going to do to get everybody juiced? So I will come up with, like this last time, we just had at the end of January, we had our board retreat, and I opened it with, because we were starting it in the morning, and it was like, okay, man, we got one member who was living on the West Coast, is in the West Coast at the time. And I was like, okay, so what have you seen on Zoom that's really exciting you? It doesn't have to be us, but just a chance that people can share or open. We did a elevator speech exercise when we still could gather in person, where literally the board it was two people, right? And then they switched and they switched and they switched. So that was a great way to integrate our newest board members who really, oftentimes a new board member won't speak for, months and months, maybe a year until they feel comfortable. This was a way of kind of, fast tracking that, getting to know people, really, getting that. I've had board members read Shakespeare speeches in the boardroom.
Nice.
Just so I'm thinking about, this is their love, what I like to call the board. They're our greatest fans, right? These are the people not only opening their checkbook, but they're opening their mind and thinking about things, and how do we get them thinking about us? So let's start with the emotion that they love the work that we do. Okay, great. They're going to tell their friends. Great. But let's get them involved as well. And I try to think about that from the entire cast, and that's no different than me treating a show and the actors and things like that. Why does this mean something to you? It's not just a job. I always like to say, like in theater, it's not like film. We don't get paid a lot of money. You got to be here because you like it. You got to be here because you really want to do something, right? You really want to do this role. There's something that really appeals to you. And how do you make it emotional, fun, exciting, things like that? And, it's really a great thing to see. And it's not trickle down, but it's really just taking the same idea and the same lens that we work with in the play itself and with our audience, and then applying it to the structures of the company. But I think that's, something like we say in currently in our board interview process is we ask our current board members to look at, will this person fit will fit in well, right? Will fit because we have a really good board, if you will, mojo. I don't know how to, we have a really lovely group of people who all talk. There's 12 of us who talk in a meeting, and nobody's quiet sitting in the corner on their cell phone and whatever. Everyone has opinions about everything. Everybody's sitting up, and you could see it, you could feel it. And it's important as we grow in the board that we don't bring in someone who's going to change that culture, right? That's the word I'm looking for, who's going to change the board culture. So I think that's really important. I set the tone. Sorry, it's our phone. I set the tone, but that's the beginning. That's the beginning.
I think that's excellent. And I think for those leaders and nonprofits that aren't true artists can really learn something from that there's a passion and energy that has to be managed, as well as just the content of responsibilities.
Something we just talked about. So we're working on trying to figure out what an anti-racism training program will look like moving forward. And we decided to have one-on-ones with the entire board. And in these one-on-ones, one of the first things I'm telling them is, I'm like, look, we're hiring 55 to 75 people a year. That's not, those people, yes, are your responsibility, but so are the 8 to 10,000 people we're playing to. They're understanding, the idea is they're understanding that they're not just walking and make a flip decision about the budget. The budget has implications, not to a small number of people, but to a large number of people.
Sure.
They may never know, the people may never know, except they see in the back of the program the name of the board directors. They may never recognize and put the two and two together. But sitting on the board, it's not just you're financially invested, right? You have liability. There's all sorts of there's legal things, but then there's how do we communicate? What we're talking about now is how do we communicate our ethics? How do we communicate our morals? How we are moving forward, what we've done wrong, what we're going to fix, how we're going to move forward on this. That's the board, right?
Right.
And that gets them excited too, because these one-on-ones was an opportunity we did to get people like, just tell us what's on your mind. Don't tell me what I want to know what you think. I don't want to know what you think the board's going to like.
Very smart.
And some wonderful ideas have come out of this, and some real stinkers. And as it always has, and that's okay, because I'm also of the big belief that sometimes it's a kernel of an idea. I encourage my board to talk about anything, even if it's not a fully formed idea, because sometimes the kernel of ideas can be built upon. We had what I would call like a amazing moment in a board meeting a few years ago, where we came up with this idea. Because everything's free, we have a difficult time we've had a difficult time in the past tracking who comes to the shows, right, for a fundraising purposes, right?
Right.
And what we came up with this idea of refundable reservations, right? It sounds like a bizarre thing. We ask people to reserve when we do indoor shows, and there's a much more, a larger cost for the company. We ask them to reserve, give us a credit card, but when you're done, we will literally hand you your money back if you so choose. Now, most of them I would say, I think it's like 85% turn it into a donation.
Nice.
Awesome. But for those who need the money back, we've had incredible people, things said like, I could never have afforded this had this not been the case. Happy to give you my credit card. Even happier to take we literally have a stack of cash at every show.
Wow.
This was evolved by the board from like kernels of ideas. One person said, oh, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And all of a sudden it built into a really kind of clear idea. And then my managing director got us a really good CRM.
Nice.
And we now can actually track even our outdoor shows. We now do reservations.
Fantastic.
And there's a little carrot there because they're outdoors. So they start at 7 and 6 o'clock. If there's rain, instead of us not being able to communicate, we can now communicate with everybody who's made reservations. So almost everybody, not almost everybody, but a lot of people now make reservations, because if we're canceled because of rain, they want to know. They don't want to get in the subway or however they get to us. They don't want to get on, walk or whatever, and then get there and it's like, oh, it's going to rain in 10 minutes. Sorry, we canceled. No. And that's just how we did it for a long time. So we're using a combination of technology with emotional intelligence. What do people want? How do they want to receive it? And I will tell you, I know that if they can't come that night because it was rained out, they will come again, because we've told them and saved them the time that they would have spent getting to us and things like that. So
very smart. Very smart.
Thanks.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Smart. So what is something you want to teach me?
That's a harder one. You know a lot, Brad. I'm not sure. I don't know if I know how to answer that question exactly. I think there are a lot of people who don't connect back, who split their brains between analytics and mission. And that divide is something I'm always, whenever I'm asked for advice, something I always encourage other people to do. Because like there's tremendous stuff in analytics now, right? We can do all sorts of measures and spreadsheets and find out these kind of trends, and we do surveying, and this is what we're hearing, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also a heart piece that's sometimes missing.
Right.
And I feel that that's important as well. So like recently I asked our managing director does some post-show surveys and things like that. And recently I said, would you send those to me? I want to read what they say. Because as I'm even making my programming decisions, not that I'm going to absolutely, again, back to, I guess, your original question, I'm hearing more voices.
Right.
I'm hearing more voices, and it may not change my mind, but at least I know they're out there.
Right. And it can actually support what you're thinking or doing.
Correct.
Which is nice. It's a nice to have.
Yes. The other thing is encouragement of colleague groups, people who meet regularly. We belong to an organization called the Shakespeare Theater Association, which is producers of Shakespeare all around the world, frankly, mostly in the United States, but we have colleagues all around the world. And I recently started a monthly meetup group on Zoom because we can.
Great.
And, getting 20, 25 major people every month in the same Zoom room, laughing, enjoying, talking, questioning each other, asking questions, soliciting advice. And we have companies in the room yesterday from, $50,000 a year budget or $25,000 a year budget to like $35 million a year budgets, are all in the same room, sharing, thinking together. And I think that's really useful for anybody who's leading organizations, because you can get so you don't want to be micromanaged by your board, but you also don't want to micromanage yourself. You need some of that 40,000 foot view, as I say. We had some, when Hillary, our managing director, and I talk, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring up something that is really a big issue. Not to deal with all of it right now, but like, I'm looking down. What are we going to do? One of the things we were just talking about, we were talking about the future of our internship program. And for an equity reason, there's a privilege working as an intern for free. A person has to come from privilege in order to afford to not be paid to work.
Right.
And that is a huge problem from an equity point of view. And we have had that, and we recognize that was what the case was. It's how I began. I came from privilege. I was in enough money that I could pay my rent and still work for basically free for several years. And not everyone could do that. And that, of course, is a big block for people who don't have those abilities. And so how do we change that? One of the things is we're going to change our current internship program into a paid program. And how is that going to morph? Now we have a set of decisions in the future ahead of us right now to how are we going to move toward that? Is it going to be an incremental thing? Can we do it overnight? Probably not. It's going to be a 2-year plan. It's going to be a 3-year plan. What are we going to do? And what's really important is reporting. Like, okay, we achieved this. This is what we didn't achieve, and this is why we didn't achieve that. Right. And so annually, we came out with in September, we released our annual plan of action in support of the theater world. You may or may not know, came out with people in the theater world, BIPOC artists of the theater world, came out with a list of demands. It's called the BIPOC Demands List for White American Theater. It was released in July, I believe, June or July, and followed up by some amazing, really amazing and very eye-opening sessions, and very clear. This is a real gift. It's a real gift. It's like, this is what we need. And one of them was, let's get rid of these unpaid internships, because people who do not come from means, who do not come from, who are not privileged, don't have the privilege, can't always do this. And if that is barring people from entering the industry, we need to change that. So we're thinking okay, so now we did a hard decision, and now we need to figure out structurally how we're going to get there and how long is it going to take. Right. Then we're going to present it to our board of directors. One of the big things, back to these meetings we're doing, is, in anti-racist training, there's a lot of talk about, the budget tells your morals, right? That's something to really think about. And that's one of the things I tell the board. The budget tells you, so we're saying, okay, for next season, we said to them, because I wanted 12 independent answers, right? Including myself. How much should we spend? How much? We're going to create a new line item for anti-racist training. How much? But let me tell you, I'm not going to tell you the specifics, but they're not, because they're confidential meetings, but the numbers are all over the board. They're really very disparate.
And kind of as they should be.
And as they should be. And then, and then we'll add math, and then we'll find out what the happy medium is. And then we will decide what are we going to do with this pot of money, right, that the board has decided that we should, increase our budget by this number so that we can do this kind of training.
Beautiful.
Because part of our commitment is to train everyone who comes to the doors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know you talked a little bit about looking at some of the results that you see and kind of measuring where you go from there. How do you measure success in your organization?
That's interesting. That's a really interesting question. So, because, it comes up in a lot of grant applications sometimes.
I would sure many.
Yes. So, yes, there's attendance numbers broken now down, because we can now see it through our analytical work. How many people are students, meaning under 18? How many people are seniors coming to the work?
Right.
What are those changes? Where are they coming from? Our most recent online project had 60% coming from the 5 boroughs of New York City, greater New York City. But we had people as far away as Zimbabwe. We had an actress in Zimbabwe, actually. So we had Zimbabwe and Thailand, and so that shows something. Critical review shows something. Are we picked we were picked a couple of seasons ago for, top off-Broadway show in New York City.
Wow.
One of the critics picked our importance of being earnest as that. We did it 2 ways every night. The actors, the entire company changed roles and gender. So it was really exciting to see women playing men and men playing women. It was, in corsets and skirts, the whole 9 yards. Just it was really an exciting thing. But so it's a combination, Then there's also, and it's hard, and frankly, it's hard, especially for a founder, because you're always moving forward. Someone talked in my meeting yesterday about this constant desire for movement forward.
Right.
And there's the site, what is it called? The Cycles of Nonprofits, right? There's that old book that, that it's a good book. It's like how nonprofits grow. You can't grow in a straight line. You have to go down, and you have to reconfigure, and you have to re-examine, then you have to go back up. Well, our next session actually is going to be devoted to the cycles of artistic leaders. How do we, when do we need to rest? When do we need to eat? This endless search of coming to the next big thing. When is it going to stop? I think the pandemic, one of the good things about this is that time where some people are really busy with a lot of minutiae, but I'm trying to really think about bigger picture items. I started a list of potential projects, which I would never have the time to do that.
And it's kind of exciting to see that future and to have that opportunity to kind of carve your path to it.
And also, when you're talking about success, celebrating what's happened, because sometimes there's not time to celebrate.
That's important.
What have you accomplished in this period of time? We're probably close to serving 275,000 people. Amazing. I'm so excited by that number, right?
Fantastic.
So like I can go to bed and go, okay, this is the number of people we've played for free. Right.
Amazing. Yeah.
So thank you. And so it's like, but there's not always that time, and especially, in the high pressure world of nonprofits. So like one of my favorite new sayings is, you got to go slow to go fast. You got to lay everything out.
Yeah.
It's like cooking. What's it like? I can't remember what, you cut up all the vegetables and you put them in different piles before you start cooking.
Right.
Mise en place, right? So you have to lay everything out, get ready, and then you go. But without that forethought and that attention, it's hard to make the final dish. I'm using a cookie metaphor as a non-cook myself.
It's good though. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So because there's always, no matter what your mission is, it's going to be related.
In the audience of this podcast, is there one thing you want them to understand about your organization? What would it be?
Well. I think a nonprofit is a partnership between public and private. Not public and private, excuse me. Let me say that. Between the nonprofit and the public audience, and the public, right?
Sure.
Not necessarily donor driven, because donors may or may not be recipients. Like I said, I call the board of directors our biggest fans. Right. Yes, they are our biggest fans. They are the ones who are opening their checkbooks and writing the largest contributions generally. Not exclusively, but generally.
Wow.
Okay, that's number one. But this partnership and finding your place. So you can't just make a decision and go into any city. Every city is unique. Every population is unique. And you have to look at your organization in terms of where you are and who you're serving. So one of the decisions I made about a year ago is the company is not, New York Classical is not going to close when I retire. Okay, so I'm 55 now, probably got another 15 years in my career, if I'm lucky. Who knows, whatever. So we'll say, okay, let's say 15 years, right? For round number's sake.
Sure.
But is it going to continue? So we are actually making active plans now for me to hand this off at some point in good shape. So when I hand the keys off and I'm just directing, let's just say like I'm directing a show a year, I'm no longer dealing with the payroll. I'm no longer dealing with all that day-to-day stuff.
Sure.
Are we in good shape? But the key is back to the initial question. It's your connection with the public. Are you hitting it? Are you doing something that the public is responding to? Are you in the right location for that? And the other thing, I'll add one more thing to this, which is particularly in today's environment, is to not rest on your laurels. Continue to ask the hard questions of yourself, of your company. I did a deep dive into why Shakespeare. Shakespeare is been the tool of colonialism, oppression. One of the things that we used to say in my business was Shakespeare's for everybody. Well, guess what? Shakespeare's not for everybody. And that's taken time, and that's been painful. It's leaning, another buzz expression, whatever, leaning into the discomfort, leaning in. Okay, something may make me feel that I always thought this way. Well, guess what? It's not that way for everyone. It may be that way for many people who I know, but maybe there's a lot of people out there who I don't know, and learning lessons about that, and learning lessons about, again, back to the what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, who you're trying to reach. And I guess, it goes back to your initial question, who are you listening to?
I think that's good advice.
So, yeah.
That relationship between the organization and the public could be a year-long course. Because it's not just about analytics, it's about your morals as well. And our morals can change and evolve and expand. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. I think, let's not forget, a 501c3 is, you find a 501c3 for the public good.
Right.
Not the public bad.
That is correct.
It's the public, right? It's the public good. But who is that public? Who's your, when I talk to theaters across the country on a regular basis, who is their vision? When I'm asking theaters to go through, I've asked a number of theaters to go through the same exercise, why Shakespeare, like I did for me. The answer is going to be very different in Omaha, Nebraska than it is in New York City. And it's going to be different in Los Angeles. It's going to be different in Seattle. It's going to be different in Florida, in Georgia, wherever you're at, there's going to be a different answer to this. Just thinking about who you are. Just because you come up with a really hot, what you think is a hot, cool new idea, doesn't mean it's always going to work in that same way. It's not, if you build it, they will come exactly. But if they're out there, right? If the public wants that,
right?
I have to say, we're one of the few audience-facing theater organizations in New York City, where we really, our mission is about the audience. It's not about the actors. It's not about the art. It's about the audience. And that makes us stand out for good reasons and sometimes not so good reasons. Not being bad reasons, but from a foundation point of view, that really want to just serve actors. Well, we're serving audience. We are serving actors, but that's not our mission.
Gotcha.
So that makes it tricky. But we have to think about that as, I'm not blonde hair and blue eyes. And if you want to date someone who's blonde hair and blue eyes, then my managing director says that, then I'm not the right person.
Right.
And that's okay. Right. So I'll find somebody who likes my dark curly hair and my dark eyes, as my wife does. Thank goodness.
There you go. Exactly right. You're good there. Hey, before we go, let's tell people how to learn more about your organization and how to donate and support what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So it's newyorkclassical.org. The best way is our website, nyclassical.org. We're also on Instagram, and we're on Facebook and Twitter as well. At NY Classical is our what is it called? Your tag or whatever it is.
Right.
Your hash,
whatever it is.
Our handle. There you go. That's the internet language. That's our handle. And we have people all over the world now who are just tuning in, specifically right now. And it's really exciting. And New York, when it comes back, I think it's going to be a little while, but it's an exciting thing, and we hope you come by, see a show when you're in New York to visit us.
I would love to travel to New York just to see a show.
Oh, well, I hope so, Brad. I hope so. Well, yeah, we'll make that happen. We'll make that happen.
That's on my menu for sure. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. I admire everything that you're doing, starting from scratch and building this amazing organization. Thanks for your time. Thanks for everyone who's listened to the NEA podcast, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks for having me.